Good afternoon and welcome back, ladies, gents and Pikachus, to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. Yes, we are back once again with another analysis and breakdown. We're going to go through this verse by verse, breaking those down into easy to understand, logical, factual statements. Then we're going to read through those and we're going to understand who is Allah, what does he intend for you and me and everyone else of the non-believer, the world of non-Muslims, and what does this mean for us in our lives going forward in the world today? So before I start, as I always do, if you have any doubts as to my factual accuracy or any of the things I'm about to tell you, please feel free to buy and read one of these, and you'll find out that every single word I'm about to say is 100% true to the words of Allah. So, last time you'll remember we went through the last of Allah's threats to his own worshippers actually and everyone else on the world. And how that went is he was promising that he was going to enforce his will upon his Muslims, and his will for the Muslims was for them to go and kill all the non-believers, Jews, Christians and everybody else. And then he detailed a bunch of horrifically bad punishments he was going to dole out for these people if they were to disagree, and also to the evil Jews and Christians, which he has been mind controlling to be Jews and Christians. You know, it's all part of his little plan. So before we carry on, because the next part past what we've already read is actually a very complicated bit, we're going to start talking about Sharia, the law of the Quran, you know, that God's law that he wrote from heaven. That's the next part. So it's very complicated, it's very lawyer-like, and it is going to be difficult and tough to get through. So before we do that, I just want to go through a few things that are going to be relevant to that and make sure we're all on the same page here and we're all at the same stage of our wisdom. So the thing that I wanted to go through is the many lies that Allah tells, because at this point I feel like we have more than enough evidence to say that Allah tells many lies, and he also makes many false promises. And I feel like when we go to Sharia, when we start reading about Quranic law, it's going to be really useful for us to know, watch out, this guy's devious, this guy is a sneaky bugger, he does tell a lot of lies and he does make a lot of false promises. And if we know the evidence of this from his own previous words, that's going to serve us well going forward into Sharia and learning about Islamic law. So, the first one of these lies is right at the beginning of the book, in the first section on the verse 22. And he says, Allah hath made all men become righteous and set up not the rivals to Allah. So what this means is Allah is saying everybody that is born, Allah has made those people in order that they become righteous. You know, he's put them on the earth to become righteous, and any rivals to Allah, he hasn't set them up, so they're not going to be a thing. But here we are in 2024, years and years, centuries actually, after he has written his book with this in, and actually we find this not to be the case. All men are not righteous. In fact, many men are not righteous. I would say the majority of people are not righteous. They don't even know what righteous is. In addition to that, he said he will set up not rivals to Allah. So, as we know from our previous readings in the other episodes we've done, the rivals of Allah is basically everyone who's not a Muslim. So how can he claim that he made all men to be righteous and he didn't set up the rivals to Allah? When we look across the world, and actually the rivals of Allah are like most people. Most of the nations in the world are not Islamic. Even some of the Islamic nations aren't particularly happy, like Iran are having a revolution right now to try and kick out their Islamic government. They don't like those guys. They want to get rid of them. They've been trying to get rid of them for like 30, 40 years. They very nearly did in 2016. Unfortunately, Obama, in his great wisdom, decided to give $150 billion to the Islamic regime, and they quickly quelled any protesters and remained in control. But that's going to end soon, according to the Iranian people. So my point is this, Allah has said all men are to become righteous, that's why they exist, but we can see, looking at the state of the world, righteousness is not the main concern for most people. And his rivals, the rivals of Allah, are actually proliferate. There's more rivals of Allah than there are Muslims in the world. Not only that, the rivals of Allah, America, Britain, Australia, all these kind of countries, the West, Christian nations and Jewish nations, these are the nations who are doing the best. They just are. Economically, politically, socially, educationally, in terms of progression of technology and medicine. In all these areas, the rivals of Allah are doing better than his actual worshippers. So we can tell there, he's told two lies. A, his lie was that men are to become righteous when they're not. The second lie is that he wouldn't set his rivals up. He has. If it's his will to do that, then he must be responsible, if he has done this, for his rivals being set up, despite the fact that he promised that they wouldn't be. Then we move on to verse 28. How can you reject Allah when he hath gave you life, when you were without? So the implication here is that Allah created all beings to have life, and before he did that, there was no life. But then we think, hang on a minute, at the beginning of your book, Allah, you went into the Garden of Eden with your angels and you saw Adam. So how is he alive already before you met him? If you create everyone with life and there is no life outside of what you create, how was that a thing, Allah? How was the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve there already with the trees when you came in? Like, you didn't create that. And then you even go on to say, Adam, I'm going to reveal the hidden secrets to you. So who hid the secrets, Allah? Why are they secret from you, Allah? Are you telling me that you created hidden secrets and you hid them from yourself and made them secret from yourself, but then you discovered your own hidden secrets and decided to teach them to Adam? No. The fact is, that was a lie. The reason why people reject Allah, despite the fact that he gave them life when they were without, is because he didn't give them life. They were without before God created them, and when Allah found humanity in the Garden of Eden, they had already been created with life, and that is the reason why people reject Allah, because if they read his own scriptures, they know he is lying. 31, verse 31. He taught Adam the names of all things and revealed the secrets of heaven and earth. So we know this to be a lie, because although he claims he taught Adam the secrets of heaven and earth and the names of all things, the second Adam hits the ground, Adam is in fear because he doesn't know how to find food and water and to survive. Now correct me if I'm wrong, if you've just taught Adam everything, he should be able to find food and water on his own, he shouldn't need you anymore. And also, you promised him he'd be the king of heaven. That didn't happen either, so that's 3 lies plus the other 2, so we're at 5 lies. We're 31 verses into the Quran, and we've already detected 5 blatant, provable lies that he actually admits in his own Quran that he has told, that are demonstrably false. Then we get to verse 40. Allah starts talking to, O children of Israel. Now keep in mind, this is right at the beginning of the book when we are still hearing about the end of the Adam story. So technically the children of Israel shouldn't come along till much later. Israel hasn't been set up yet. Moses hasn't been a thing yet. We've just literally got to the end of Adam and Eve and Allah saying, off you go, worship me and find food. But straight away, he says, O children of Israel, call to mind the special favour I bestowed upon thee. He is of course referring to the covenant that the Israelites have with their God. But they haven't happened yet. This is far too early in the story to start thinking children of Israel, because Israel isn't going to be a thing for hundreds of years. We've still got loads of stuff to go before that actually happens. And even after that happens, the special favour bestowed upon thee, that never actually happened. In the Torah, in the Old Testament, God doesn't bestow any special favour upon the Israelites or the Jews. That's not how it goes. The special favour is upon the Gentiles. The whole point in saving the world and the Jewish tradition and religion is to bring God out of Israel and give it to the Gentiles. The Gentiles are the ones that get the special favour, not the Israelites. So that's a lie. The fact that he's talking about the children of Israel way before they exist, pretending that he knows what's going to happen, by the way, that's another lie. He says, I know everything that's going to happen and I can read everyone's thoughts. You didn't read the thoughts of the Israelites, because if you had, you would have known the special favour was bestowed on the Gentiles. So that's 6 lies. And we don't have to go far past that to get to our next one. We go to verse 49 and we hear, and we did deliver you from the people of the Pharaoh. Now this is after the Israelites have escaped Egypt and they're currently across the desert setting up Israel, doing their sacrifice with Moses. And we know from your own book, Allah, you did not deliver the Israelites from the people of the Pharaoh. You killed them in your own words. You struck them with lightning bolts and killed them, and then resurrected them and got them drunk with quails and wine. And while you were doing this, you were trying to get them to accept your worship, but they wouldn't. So on the way out, as they were escaping, because you could not kill them for some undefined reason we're not told about, as the Israelites are escaping across the sea and you're chasing them with your Egyptian heavily armoured soldiers, Moses is the one that parts the Red Sea to let them across and then makes the Red Sea fall in again to kill your Egyptian soldiers. So in fact, this is another lie. You did not deliver the Israelites from the people of the Pharaoh. You were controlling the Egyptians and the people of the Pharaoh. That was your guys, Allah. So you would have been quite happy to kill the Israelis or keep them as slaves had you not been able to do that. But for some reason, you couldn't kill them, you couldn't keep them as slaves, and they escaped despite your best efforts to kill them, to set up Israel. And so it was Moses and God, through Moses' parting the Red Sea, that delivered the people of Israelite, the Israelite people from the Pharaoh. It wasn't you, Allah. So that is 8 lies. This is the 8th time you've lied. We're not even past the end of, not even through one book yet. 1 verse 63. Remember we took your covenant and raised ourselves above your Mount Sinai. So Allah is again referring to the covenant of the Jews. And actually I will say this. He doesn't start mentioning the covenant of the Jews until it already looks like the Jews are going to escape. Notice that. So I don't know whether you realise how important that is, but Allah, if he can convince the Israelites to stay in Egypt as slaves and accept his worship, he would never have been mentioning their covenant. The only reason he starts mentioning their covenant is because they've escaped, and he's now trying to throw shade on the God that has helped them escape so he can claim that it's all part of his plan. So 10 lies if we include those two. 10 lies, and we're at verse 63. We're 63 sentences into your book, and we have 10 clear times that you have lied, and you provide the proof in your own words why they are demonstrably not true. Finally, we get to verse 87, where Allah says, "We did give Moses his holy book and followed him with signs for the messenger, Jesus Christ." So again, he wants to take credit for Moses. He really hates the fact that the Israelites escaped, and it was through God's miracles that were performed by Moses that the Israelites managed to escape death and slavery, and he couldn't kill them. So he starts slagging off the covenant, and then to compound his throwing shade on them, he says, "We gave Moses his holy book." So what he's saying there is Allah created the Torah and gave it to Moses. That's explicitly what he means. Allah is saying he gave Moses the Torah. And not only that, he was the one who was responsible for Jesus Christ's holy signs and his miracles. But we know from other texts in the series, the Torah and the Gospels, and actually from historical evidence, that the things that he says in the Quran about Jesus are not the case. And we know from carbon dating the original manuscript that the original Torah predates the Quran by almost 950 years. So this is definitely another lie. So that's 11 lies. And that brings us to our final passage we're going to look at, 198, verse 98. "Whoever is an enemy of Allah and his prophet, Allah is an enemy of he." So let's break that down. Whoever is an enemy of Allah and his prophet, Allah is an enemy of that person. So if you remember at the beginning, he said he set up not rivals to Allah. So he clearly says in verse 22, he's not going to have any rivals because he's not going to allow these guys to build up their towns and have lives. He's not going to set them up at all. He's going to destroy them. But then down here, he's saying, well, if we do have enemies, I'm going to hate them. I'm going to be an enemy of theirs. So verse 98 cancels out verse 22. Because you can't say, Allah, that you control everything, that you control the non-believers, that everything that comes to be or is destroyed is through you, and then also later say, well, if anyone's my enemy, I'm going to hate them. It's like you can either destroy them for being your enemy because you said you're not going to set them up, which means you would never have any enemies. Like people like me wouldn't exist speaking against the rubbish that you talk in your Quran. We would be dead. Now, we wouldn't have ever been a thing. None of the other ones would be a thing. Guys that leave your cults wouldn't be a thing if 22 was true, but it's not. And we know by the end of verse 98, because Allah is now saying, even though earlier he said, I'm not going to have any enemies, I won't let them set up. Now he's saying, I do have enemies, and I am going to be enemies of them. Because I expect that they're going to last. They're not going to disappear and be defeated immediately, as I said in verse 22. So that brings us to the end of our short reading, but remember the reason why I went through all these things. I just want you to be sure in your head, when these Muslims come onto my page with their comments and their little trickeries, Allah demonstrably is not an honest person. Whether he's a supernatural being with mental, crazy, supernatural powers, or whether he's just a dead guy who has only lies in his book in order to control people, whichever one is true, we know Allah is a liar. Well, that's what he should be called. He shouldn't be called Allah. He should be called a liar. Because we can see, even by the first 100 verses, 100 simple sentences, which is 22 pages, by the end of the 22nd page of a 650 page book, he's already told 10 demonstrable big important lies. And there's way more in there. I could have done 20 lies, 30 lies. I just picked out the biggest, most obvious 10. So, in conclusion, keep a hold of that in your mind. Remember, not only is Allah a liar, a deceiver, who tricks and manipulates, and uses false information in order to burn his enemies and motivate his people against those enemies. So he uses his Muslims as a tool. He enslaves them to use as a weapon against those he hates. Keep that in mind for when we, in tomorrow's edition, go through Sharia law, or Sharia. It's not, Sharia means Islamic law, so you can't say Sharia law. Tomorrow, when we go through Sharia in the Quran of the Muslims, I want you to just keep in mind how many lies we've already caught him telling that he has demonstrated to be false in his own words. And that's the end of this video. So I hope you really enjoyed hearing about that and you learned something. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now. Brace yourselves. If you thought it was tough going so far, just wait until you meet Allah's lawyer going through Sharia, the law of the Islamic cultures. So look forward to that tomorrow. Until then, goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.